When my parents landed in Europe, the first thing they saw was a front desk clerk shaking her head, telling them their luxury reservation didn't exist. Their faces twisted in confusion. Their voices rose. Every eye in that marble lobby turned toward them. And somewhere across the ocean, I sat on my couch with a cup of tea, watching my phone explode with their panic. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. But let me take you back to where this really started, because it wasn't that morning at the airport. It was 28 years in the making. My name's Sloane, and I was the invisible daughter. The one who fixed everything, paid for everything, showed up for everything. And in return, I got to watch my younger sister Sienna collect all the attention, all the sympathy, all the grace I never received. Growing up, our house looked perfect from the outside. Quiet neighborhood on the north side, fresh-cut lawns, neighbors waving. Mom, Barbara, always had flowers arranged in the kitchen window. Dad, Gerald, sat with his newspaper every morning like some picture of suburban peace. And behind them, always behind them, was me, doing the work nobody noticed. I handled their bills when they forgot. Drove them to appointments when Dad didn't feel like dealing with it. Picked up Sienna from whatever disaster she'd caused that week, lost jobs, broken friendships, rent she couldn't pay. Again. It didn't matter if I was exhausted from my own job or running on 4 hours of sleep. I was the steady one, the responsible one, the one who could be counted on because I didn't complain. And I didn't complain because I'd learned early that complaining didn't change anything. Mom adored Sienna. She said it was because Sienna was fragile. That word explained everything in her mind. Sienna needed protecting. Sienna needed help. Sienna needed one more chance. I used to believe it too, until I realized fragility wasn't the real issue. Sienna didn't need protecting. She needed enabling. And my parents were world-class at it. I remember one Christmas when I was 19. I'd worked double shifts for 2 months to save up for a nice dinner out, something special for all of us. I made reservations at this restaurant Mom had mentioned once, the kind with white tablecloths and a dress code. I was so excited to surprise them. The day before, Sienna called. She needed money for rent. Emergency, she said. Eviction notice. I gave her what I'd saved. Canceled the reservation. We had spaghetti at home instead. 2 weeks later, I saw photos on her social media. She'd gone to a concert with friends. Expensive tickets. New outfit. When I asked about it, Mom said I should be proud I could help my sister. That family takes care of each other. But it only ever went one direction. Still, I kept trying. Every birthday, every holiday, every milestone, I tried to show them I could be more than the background character they'd cast me as. That's where the Europe trip came from. A spark of hope I shouldn't have trusted. 2 years of overtime. Skipped weekends. Cheap lunches at my desk while I watched my bank account grow, one painful dollar at a time. I picked 3 cities they'd always talked about but never had the chance to visit. Booked hotels with views. Reserved tours that required months of advance notice. Planned a week that I imagined might finally feel like family. I'd lie awake some nights, picturing it. The 4 of us walking through cobblestone streets. Mom taking photos. Dad actually relaxed for once. Maybe even Sienna appreciating something I'd done. Maybe even saying thank you. Stupid, right? But hope does that. It makes you believe in things that have never happened before. By the time June rolled around, I'd memorized every confirmation code, printed every itinerary, tucked them neatly into a folder in my bag. My suitcase sat by the door the night before, packed tight. Clothes rolled perfectly. Guidebook slipped into the side pocket. I'd triple-checked the alarms on my phone. I barely slept that night. Not from excitement, from something deeper. A feeling I couldn't name. Like standing on the edge of something that could either save me or destroy me. This trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a peace offering. A bridge I was still trying to build, even when the foundation had cracked years ago. That morning, I told myself everything would be different. That maybe I'd finally get to be part of the we my parents used so easily when they talked about family plans. I was about to learn exactly how wrong I was. I knew something was off the second I pulled into their driveway. The house was too awake for 6 in the morning. Curtains drawn back. Shadows moving behind them. The kind of energy that didn't match a quiet early departure. My heart started pounding before I even understood why. I grabbed my bag and walked up the path, rehearsing the cheerful greeting I expected to get. But the front door opened before I could knock. And Sienna stepped out first. She wasn't dressed like someone waking up early to see family off. She was dressed like someone about to board a plane. Hair curled. Suitcase upright beside her. Passport case dangling from her fingers. She didn't look surprised to see me. She looked prepared. I stopped halfway up the steps. My legs felt like they'd forgotten how to work. What's going on? Mom appeared behind her, wearing that smile she saved for moments when she'd already made a decision and expected compliance. Oh, Sloane, good. You're on time. I glanced at Sienna again. Her smirk. Her perfectly packed suitcase. A knot tightened in my chest, pulling tighter with every second. Why does she have luggage? Barbara clasped her hands like she was about to deliver mildly inconvenient news. Like she was telling me the restaurant changed our reservation time, not that she was cutting me out of my own trip. We've decided to take Sienna instead of you. For a second, I didn't understand the words. They just floated there, impossible to process. My brain kept trying to rearrange them into something that made sense. What? She's been under so much stress lately, Mom said, her tone softening into that practiced sympathy she never used on me. Your sister needed some rest. So we decided to take her. Decided. Past tense. Done deal. No discussion. The sentence hit harder than I expected. Not because of the words, because of the smile that followed. That little curl at the corner of her mouth. The smile of someone expecting gratitude for betrayal. Behind her, Gerald shifted in the doorway. He didn't look at me. He never looked at me when things got uncomfortable. It just seemed like the right thing, he murmured. The right thing. For who? Sienna tugged her suitcase handle, fake apology dripping from her voice. I mean, I didn't even ask. They insisted. Said I deserve this after everything I've been dealing with. Everything she'd been dealing with. An unfinished job application. A rent payment I'd covered last month. A fight with a friend because she forgot to show up. Meanwhile, I'd been dealing with 2 years of sacrifice. 2 years of planning. 2 years of hope. But nobody mentioned that. I swallowed hard, tasting bitterness and disbelief. Instead of me, I repeated quietly. Mom nodded like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. You're always working, sweetheart. You can take another trip later. You understand, right? Understand. That word again. A lifetime of being expected to understand. To be flexible. To make room. To step aside. The morning sun warmed my face, but I felt cold all the way through. I looked down at my own neatly packed suitcase, still sitting in my trunk. 2 years of sacrifice folded inside. And I realized the trip had been taken from me before I even knew it. I stood there staring at the 3 people who were supposed to know me best, and all I could manage was silence. But this time, my silence wasn't surrender. It was the sound of something shifting. The sound of a boundary beginning to form. The sound of the last thread holding me to them starting to fray. The drive to the airport felt like sitting in a house that was already burning. Silent. Smoky. Impossible to breathe in. I kept my eyes on the road, hands steady on the wheel, even as everything inside me rattled. Sienna scrolled on her phone in the back, humming softly like she was heading to a spa weekend she'd earned. Barbara spoke first, her voice bright and hopeful, utterly unaware of the damage she'd done. We'll start with the river cruise. Then maybe shopping. We'll see how Sienna feels. How Sienna felt. As if the entire trip, 2 years of overtime, of canceled plans, of living on microwave dinners, had been calibrated for her comfort. Gerald cleared his throat. Thank you for driving us, Sloan. It means a lot. No, it didn't. If it meant a lot, they wouldn't have replaced me. If I meant a lot, they would have asked. They would have hesitated. They would have seen my face and realized what they were doing. But I didn't say a word. At one point, Sienna leaned forward, tapping the back of my seat. Make sure you drop us at the departure's entrance. The one closest to our airline. I don't want to drag my bags too far. Her bags. The bags that should have been mine. I nodded because nodding was the only thing holding my rage inside my body. When we pulled up to the drop-off lane, I put the car in park and got out to help with the luggage. My hands moved automatically, lifting bags that no longer felt like family, just weights I'd been dragging my whole life. Barbara kissed my cheek. You're a good daughter, Sloan. This really helps us. I stepped back. Yeah, I know. Sienna shot me a grin, bright and satisfied and unbothered. You're the best, Sloan. Seriously. And that was it. The final straw wasn't the betrayal. It was the ease. The comfort with which they cut me out, stepped over me, and walked toward the terminal without once looking back. Like I was the driver. Not their daughter. Not their sister. Just the person who got them where they needed to go. I sat in my car for a long moment, watching them disappear into the sliding doors. Watching the automatic glass swallow the three silhouettes I'd always tried to fit myself into. I waited until they were gone. Until the lane cleared. Until my breathing steadied and my hands stopped shaking. Then I drove home. The house was dark and still. The suitcase I'd packed the night before waited by my door. Like a lie I'd told myself. Maybe this time they'll choose you. I walked past it, sat down at my kitchen table, and opened my laptop. Every confirmation I'd saved was still in my inbox. Flights. Hotels. Tours. Upgrades. All of it had my name. My payments. My effort. They'd replaced me on the trip. But they couldn't replace the owner of the reservations. And for the first time in my life, I didn't fix their mistake. I didn't smooth things over. I didn't make it work. I took back what was mine. One click at a time. Cancel. 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 Each click felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. Each confirmation email felt like taking back a piece of myself I'd given away for free. By the time the last reservation vanished from the screen, a strange calm settled over me. Not joy. Not revenge. Just clarity. They would understand everything when their plane touched down in Europe. And I was finally done being their fallback. I didn't expect the first message to come so quickly. I thought they'd at least reach the hotel before realizing what I'd done. But barely an hour after their flight touched down, my phone lit up. First with a text from Barbara. Then a call from Sienna. Then another from Gerald. Then a storm of notifications so relentless the screen froze twice. I didn't answer. I brewed tea, opened a window, and let the summer air slide across my shoulders while my phone vibrated itself into a panic attack on the table. Only when the buzzing finally slowed did I check the screen. 14 missed calls. 7 texts. 3 voicemails. I opened the messages first. From Barbara, something is wrong. The hotel says the reservation isn't there. Fix it. From Gerald, maybe there's a mistake. Call when you see this. From Sienna, this isn't funny. We're stuck at the counter. Another from Barbara, shorter this time, fix it now. Not a question. A command. My lips curled. Not in triumph. Not in cruelty. Just in a level of peace I'd forgotten was possible. They weren't used to feeling consequences. They were used to me absorbing them. I set the phone down again and let the silence stretch until late afternoon. By the time I finally listened to the voicemails, their tone had shifted. First voicemail, Barbara, frantic. Sloan, they said the reservation was canceled. Everything. The tours too. They said the account owner did it. You booked everything. What did you do? What did I do? I did what I should have done years ago. Second voicemail, Sienna, furious, you ruined our entire trip. Stop being dramatic and call the hotel back. Tell them it was a mistake. Sloane, seriously, grow up. Grow up. That's rich, coming from someone who'd never paid her own rent. Third voicemail, Gerald, tired, this is getting out of hand. Call us so we can sort this out. Sort this out. As if we were all equally responsible. As if we'd all made the same choice. I didn't respond. That evening, I ordered takeout, curled up on the couch, and let their panic roll off me like water. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't spite. It was simply balance. The first moment in my life where the scales didn't lean entirely against me. The next morning brought another barrage, this time with photos. A picture of Barbara and Gerald standing outside the hotel with their luggage piled at their feet. A picture of Sienna sitting on an uncomfortable bench, glaring at the camera. A picture of the front desk attendant pointing at a screen, as if to confirm, no reservation, no upgrades, no anything. Their captions varied, but all circled the same message, fix it. I didn't. They eventually found a last-minute room at a budget hotel far from the city center. Tiny. Dim, the opposite of everything I'd booked. They sent more photos. More complaints. More guilt. By the third day, something in their tone cracked. Gone was the entitlement. Gone was the condescension. In its place came desperation coated in thin humility. Please call. We're struggling here. We need your help. I still didn't answer. Because for once, I wasn't their solution. I wasn't their backup plan. I wasn't the person who fixed things so they could keep pretending everything was fine. When they finally arrived home, not glamorous, not glowing, but exhausted and rumpled, I was already sitting on their porch. Not hiding. Not avoiding them. Just waiting. The taxi dropped them off at the curb. Even from a distance, I could see the defeat in their posture. Their clothes were wrinkled. Their hair frizzy from humidity. Their eyes ringed with stress. Sienna saw me first. Oh, great, she muttered, dragging her suitcase toward the steps. Here we go. Barbara followed, her chin lifted in that stubborn tilt she used when she was both embarrassed and angry. You owe us an explanation. I didn't move. What do you want me to explain? That trip was a disaster, Barbara snapped. We had to stay in a tiny room. The tour company kept saying we weren't on their schedule. Everything was chaos. Gerald sighed heavily. You could have called someone. You could have fixed it. There it was again. The expectation that I would fix what they broke. I stood then, slow and steady. Why would I fix a trip I wasn't invited to? Barbara blinked. You're being dramatic. We thought you'd understand. Sienna needed a break. Needed a break from what? My voice didn't rise, but it sharpened. From not having a job? From sleeping in every day? From waiting for someone else to solve her life? Sienna's face reddened. That's rude. What's rude, I said, taking a step down toward them, is deciding to take my sister on a trip I paid for. What's rude is smiling while you cut me out. What's rude is expecting me to fund your vacation after you replaced me. We were doing something nice for your sister, Barbara said, but her voice wavered. With my money, I said. With my effort. With my 2 years. Barbara scoffed, but it sounded hollow. We didn't replace you. You did, I said. You absolutely did. And you didn't hesitate. Gerald tried again. You could have talked to us instead. You canceled everything. I looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time, I saw not my father, but a man who had spent his whole life avoiding taking a stand. A man who let his wife make all the decisions so he never had to be the bad guy. I didn't cancel everything, I said quietly. I canceled what I paid for. You took me out of the trip. So I took myself out of the bill. Silence settled over the porch. Not the heavy, oppressive silence I'd grown up with. A clean, clarifying one. Sienna crossed her arms, defensive to the last second. You ruined our week. No, I said. I stopped ruining myself for you. Barbara opened her mouth, closed it again, looked away. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. I picked up my keys, slinging my bag over my shoulder. I hope you learned something from this. Because I did. What did you learn? Gerald asked, his voice small. That boundaries exist, I said. And I'm finally going to keep them. I stepped off the porch. No one followed. As I reached my car, Sienna called after me, her voice cracking just a little. So what now? You're just done? I turned back once. I'm done being your fixer, I said. Not your family. But if you want me in your life, it's going to be on equal terms. Not as your safety net. Then I got in my car and drove away. Not triumphant. Not vengeful. Just free. For days after the confrontation, my phone buzzed with messages I didn't rush to open. Short apologies from Gerald. Overly sweet, carefully phrased texts from Barbara. A single line from Sienna that read, whatever. None of it carried weight anymore. I answered only when I felt like it. Never out of obligation. With the noise fading, my home finally felt like mine. I cleaned out drawers I'd ignored for years. Rearranged my living room. Opened curtains that had been shut for too long. There was a lightness in moving through those rooms without carrying their expectations on my shoulders. One evening, I sat at my desk and pulled up the old spreadsheet I'd used to plan the Europe trip. Instead of the sting I expected, I felt clarity. That money had always been meant for an experience worth remembering. So I booked a solo trip to Italy. Rome first, then Florence. No compromises. No last-minute substitutions. No one else's preferences to consider. When I stepped off the plane weeks later, a soft warmth wrapped around me. I walked streets with no one's mood to manage. Ate when I wanted. Lingered where I liked. Sat in cafes without checking my phone every 5 minutes to see if someone needed something. Every moment felt like reclaiming something I hadn't realized I'd lost. Freedom wasn't loud. It was steady. And it finally belonged to me. By the time I flew home from Italy, I knew one thing for certain. Love isn't measured by how much you give. It's measured by whether anyone ever gives back. Setting boundaries didn't break my family. It finally showed me which parts were worth keeping. And if you've ever carried more than your share, I hope my story reminds you that you're allowed to step away. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to take back what's yours. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice and taking back your life. Sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to stop giving pieces of yourself to people who never valued them in the first place.